Yo.
What up, though?
I got to talk. I gotta tell what I feel. I gotta talk about my life as I see it.
All right then. It's time for you to bring it to the table.
Turn up your radio wherever you at. We about to bring it.
Street Beat.
Yeah.
With Tony B.
For the next hour, Tony B will give you a chance to tackle local, national, and international issues that affect your community.
Street Beat.
Street Beat. With
Tony B.
Hey, what's up? It's me, Tony B, and yes, you are tuned in to Rainier Avenue Radio. This is another edition of Street Beat, your community voice, your platform, your station. This is another edition of our 2025 Community Election Connection, which is powered by the Urban League of Metropolitan Seattle, where we hope to get informed, we hope to get engaged, and ready to make your voice heard. Now, when we're talking about voting, how it works, how your ballot gets counted, and who makes sure our elections are fair and accurate and accessible, there's one name that comes to mind. And that is Julie Wise, the Executive Director of King County Elections. So King County Elections is responsible for running one of the largest vote-by-mail systems in the nation. You know, that's what we do. You no longer go, you send in your vote. And they serve over 1.4 million voters and make sure every eligible voice has the opportunity to be heard. So today we're going to break it down, how the process works, what goes on behind the scenes, how ballots are verified and counted, and how you can make sure that your vote truly counts. We're going to dive right into this. And once again, the Executive Director of King County Elections, Julie Wise. Julie, how are you?
I'm so good. I'm so glad to be here.
Well, awesome. You've been doing this for a while now. Do you like your job? Is it enjoy? I mean, it seems like the current federal administration has complained a lot about votes being counted, votes being not counted, fraud. How does that impact and affect what you do? And does that add pressure to you for this particular job?
Yeah, and has really taken a hit or specifically focused in on vote by mail, right? Mm-hmm. Which, of course, we've been doing here for well over a decade. So I have been working at King County Elections for 25 years. Wow. So I think you could say I like it. Okay. I like it a lot. And I find it to be really incredibly rewarding work because it is challenging, but I love my community. And we're all about that at King County Elections. We're about making sure that the voters have an opportunity to have their voices heard and to run for office and to get folks registered and to sign petitions and engage in the civic process in any way that they can or choose to. So it's certainly been a hard time for election administrators across this country. In fact, we've seen a rather sort of mass exodus in this career for a lot of folks because it has been, there's so much vitriol sort of about elections. There's also been real threats to election administrators just doing their job, right? And so it's certainly been a challenging time, but it's also, I try to look at it as an opportunity to educate folks about how secure elections are, how much steps there are to the process to ensure that every single vote is counted and counted accurately. And so it's got its balance there. But 25 years later, I absolutely love this work. And it's, of course, attracts a really great group of people that love their community. And that's why I think I stay in this work so much, is the love for the voters and for the folks that I get to do this work with, election administrators. They're some pretty awesome folks.
Now, you kind of explained this a little bit. I'm just going to ask you to go a little bit more in the weeds about what King County Elections does, and then your role as executive director.
Right. So at King County Elections, our responsibility is making sure that we're managing the voter rolls. For King County, again, that is
voter rolls.
The voter rolls, right. So as folks register to vote, we're going to manage the voter registration records. As you move into the county and get registered, or you now become eligible to vote, we're going to get you registered. And then if you move, we're going to track that information as well. So we're really making sure that those that when you talk about voter fraud, we're making sure that that record of the voter is accurate and up to date. And then that ensures us, then we get to mail votes or mail ballots to every single voter across King County. Even before that, we're getting candidates signed up that are running for office so that we can print them on the ballot. So from King County elections, you're getting a nonpartisan, neutral election administrators that job is to really conduct the elections. Besides just voter registration, we also send out those ballots. We also receive those ballots back from our voters through a drop box or through the mail. And then we're going to count those ballots back at our elections headquarters based in Renton. And then we'll post the results for those elections. My job as the elected King County Director of Elections, a lot of electing going on there, is to ensure that our amazing group of 75 permanent employees, and we will hire hundreds of temporary employees to make sure that we're running that election secure, accurately, and really importantly, accessibly. And I think what we've proven here in King County is that you can do both. You can do all of those. You can have accessible elections, meaning that you meet the voter where they're at, and that you provide opportunities to easily return your ballot by mail or drop box, and have secure, accurate elections at the same time.
Okay. How do folks know? Well, first, let's start with this. How many ballots are we talking about in King County?
Yeah.
How many? What are you handling? What is the number of ballots that are coming in King County?
You know, that's a great question, because that number ranges depending on the election. Some folks don't know. They're like, what are you doing at King County elections all the rest of the years when it's not a federal election? Well, we actually have 4 elections a year here in Washington State. We've got a couple of special elections in the springtime, and then we've got our August primary election and our November general election. And so during an odd year like we're in right now, when we have this
right now, like that's why we're doing the community election connection, because we want you to make sure that you participate, because local elections are important. I'm sorry.
They're incredibly important, and we see the lowest turnout rates in our local elections that I would argue are the most important. They really truly shape our day-to-day lives. They impact our day-to-day lives more than any other elections do. But yet, just in this primary election, we only saw 35% of that 1.4 million registered voters turn out for the election. So you're talking a little shy of 500,000 ballots returned to the elections facility. Now, in a presidential election like we saw, let's say 2020, where we almost hit a 90% turnout.
What? Wow.
Some of the highest in the country, a 90% turnout. Now you're talking some 1.2 million ballots back to that facility.
Now, that was a presidential election.
That's a presidential
that
election.
Makes a difference when there is a presidential election. Is that consistent throughout your 25 years of doing this? During the presidential election, we get more voters to turn out?
Absolutely. Okay. When we have a presidential election, we see more folks engaged in the process. We see more folks returning their ballots and returning their ballots earlier.
But again, this is, I'm calling it an off presidential year, because it's not a presidential election. It's not even a midterm election.
Right.
But we have very important races that are taking place, folks who are running for office that are looking for your vote, that are going to represent you. That is why we are doing the community election connection. You know, Julie, we started on September 15th, and we say we're going to go through October 26th. That's just an arbitrary 31 days of making sure that every single day we do something to inform our community about the importance of this election. We've held debates. Just last night, we had a Seattle School Board candidate forum. We've got debates coming up next week. We're doing things like this. We're doing a series on police accountability to make sure that folks are informed, so that you can hold your candidates accountable when they become elected. Somebody's going to win. And that's basically what this deal is. But today, we're talking about voting, what that looks like, what that means, what happens. So from the moment someone says they fill out their ballot, and like I said, I'm just bringing this up because we've had some disparaging comments about mail-in voters, mail-in ballots. And so I just really want to address that, all right? And especially when it comes from the top person in the country. And you wonder how secure this process is and if it's really fair. So what happens from the moment a person fills out their ballot the way that they want it and drops it in the box? Take us through the process to where it gets officially counted, what is registered as a vote.
Absolutely. So when you're registered here in Washington State, you're registering either with your driver's license or state ID number or the last four of your social security number. So
I said drop it in the ballot box, but that's not the only thing you can do. You can.
It's not the only way, but I highly recommend it.
Okay.
We've got nearly 90 of them across King County here alone, right?
Okay.
So that means that over 90% of our voters live within just a 3-mile radius of a drop box, right? We've got one at Rainier Beach Community Center, Rainier Community Center, and they're located again across King County. And when you get into your urban dense areas like Seattle, it becomes more like 75% live within a 1-mile radius of those drop boxes. And so those are open 24/7 once ballots go out. And of course, they close promptly at 8 p.m. on election day. But let's dig into this voter fraud.
Okay.
This isn't accurate. This isn't accurate. I'm a data person. You can't be in elections and not be a data person. You got to love numbers. It goes with the job, right? And so when we talk about voter fraud, that is increasingly rare in this state or in this country. In fact, in the last presidential election, when we had 1.2 million ballots, 1.2 million ballots returned in this election in our presidential, we only referred 17 cases to the prosecuting attorney's office of potential fraud for them to investigate. That's like 100,000th of a percent, right? 17 out of 1.2 possibly could be fraud. And what we're seeing is is things like a widow signing her deceased husband's ballot, his last sort of dying wish, right? It's things like that we're seeing. So this rampant voter fraud and vote by mail is not accurate. It isn't true.
So we're not saying, in not just your opinion, but as the executive director of King County Elections, organize groups, entities, people doing mass or maybe not even mass, maybe even minor organized voter fraud.
Not happening.
People are saying people who have died. There are organizations that are taking those and having them vote. People who are, so you're saying, no, that's not happening.
It doesn't happen. The amount of work, the reason why we work 24/7, 365 at King County Elections is to keep our voter rolls clean. We're looking at information from Social Security Administration. We even look in the obituaries to make sure that if voters have passed away, that they're removed from the voter rolls, meaning that their voter registration is canceled. So our rolls are clean, accurate, up to date. That's one example of hundreds of different points in which we're constantly ensuring that the voter rolls are accurate. We're working with the United States Postal Service to get updates from them, the Department of Licensing. And so there's a lot of things happening there that keep our voter rolls clean. So they're accurate rolls going into the election, which is important, right? And then once voters get their ballot and they get the opportunity and vote by mail to have a sense of community, to vote at the coffee shop together or the bar or their kitchen table, right? And be able to discuss with one another about the important ballot measures or the candidates that are running for office. They have an opportunity to tune into candidate forums, to read the voter pamphlet that we send out, to call and contact the candidate to get more information about where they stand on issues. And after they get to make that informed decision, and they get a vote for what they want to, by the way. If there's races where you don't feel informed or you don't want to chime in, you don't have to. It's not a test. You can vote for the races that you want to, and then you turn in that ballot. You said drop boxes. I love that. I highly encourage a drop box. You can also use the United States Postal Service as well to return your ballot. Once you do that, all of those ballots are brought back from either the United States Postal Service or from the drop boxes on a daily basis, up bright and early to go to those drop boxes and to the post office. We bring those back to our incredibly secure King County Elections headquarters where we are starting the process. And I just got to make a plug. you can tune along and see every step where your ballot is in the process by tracking your ballot on our website, or even better than that, you can sign up for ballot alerts, and we'll text or email you every step your ballot is in the process.
So your one individual vote,
yes,
your one ballot can be tracked, and you can keep track of it and find out where it is in the process.
We're going to track. We don't know what ballot is going to be yours. When I tell you when we walk through this process, we're going to separate the identity of the voter from the ballot so that we don't know whose is whose. But before, up to that point, we're going to track it. We're going to say, hey, your ballot's been returned. Then we're going to look at the signature. We're trained by Washington State Patrol to be able to verify the signature on your return ballot envelope to the signature in your voter registration record. And again,
every voter who fills out a ballot, you check the signature on every single ballot against what? How do you know which signature is whose signature? Is there a process that you say, okay, well, we have a copy of your signature, or how does that work?
We keep a little scrapbook, if you will, electronic scrapbook of your various signatures. We're getting those signatures from the Department of Licensing. We're also getting those signatures from any voter registration form you fill out. Or oftentimes we reach out to voters and say, hey, it's been a while since you've provided us with an updated signature. Why don't you give us another one? So we have many, typically 3 to 4 signatures on file.
Wow.
For every single voter. And so what we'll do is we'll get the return ballot back. It'll pull up that voter registration record, if you will, and we'll be able to verify that signature right there on the spot. And we as human beings are doing that for every single ballot that's returned.
So that is not something that is done through AI or any other type. Actual humans looking at every single ballot signature turned in?
That's correct. That is correct. I know when I give tours, which by the way, I love giving tours of King County Elections Facility. We've got to get you down there. Is that people are shocked. They're like, I had no idea why you guys were asking for my signature. That's why. We are actually comparing it. In vote by mail, that's how you validate that the person, the voter that you mailed that ballot to, is the one who actually signed it and returned their ballot. That's our verification step there. And it's something that we've been using in Washington State for, all 25 years I've been there plus. And so it's a secure system. It's something you see across the country. So once we verified that you returned your ballot and no one else got a hold of your ballot and returned it for you, then we're going to go ahead and we're going to open up that outer envelope that's got your signature, and we're going to sever that identity of the voter from their ballot. And then we're going to send that ballot into our scanning system and be able to scan that ballot, ultimately counting the ovals, the votes, the people, the measures that you voted for. And then election night, we display those results at 8 p.m. or about 8:05 p.m. And then subsequently each day thereafter, we're also posting results at 4 p.m. Question I get a lot: why does it take them so long to process ballots? Or sometimes we've heard that, right? That they take too long to process ballots. Something's got to be up with that. That's not true. We actually receive about 50% of voters' ballots that are going to be returned in an election the days before election. Other than that, the other 50%, I don't know if this is you, we don't receive until election day, which is fine. You're allowed to do that. Ballots can still be counted. We see a lot of folks at our drop boxes on election night. I don't recommend it. I don't like standing in lines personally, but those ballots are still going to be counted because here in Washington State, we still have another 3 weeks that we're able to count ballots. And if you had a signature issue, maybe your signature's changed over time, maybe something happened that altered your signature, we're going to reach out to you and make sure that we can count your ballot. So we've got another 3 weeks after this general election to do that and continue to post results.
It's me, Tony B. My guest is Julie Wise from King County Elections. We're diving into the electoral process, how your vote works. You know, during this community election connection, we're talking to candidates and finding out where they stand on some of the issues that are most important to you, allowing you to have your voice to make sure that you can hold them accountable. Well, of course, we're talking about issues, whether you're aware of them or not, that impact our community. Again, this is a local election, so these things impact you directly. You know, we've been talking about things like police accountability. We've been talking about surveillance. Some of you didn't even know that there were cameras that were surveilled. You didn't know that your city council voted to have more cameras. Some of you were for that, some of you, but you should at least know. But today, right now, we're talking about the voting process. My guest is Julie Wise, Executive Director of King County Elections. We spent a long time talking about fraud and what happens with the vote, because that is something that has come up. And folks want to know if their vote is secure, or if the candidate that they're voting for, somehow there's something against them that is, in the words, rigged against the candidate. And so, again, I'm just summarizing. You're saying, at least in King County elections, no, that's not happening.
Not happening.
So how does King County elections compare to other, what would you call them, around the state and around the country, electoral offices, businesses, whatever the term is for that? Are they uniform in how you function and how you operate? Do you have yearly summits where you exchange information so that you can say, okay, this is working, this is not working? Watch out for that. What's the deal?
Absolutely. I think I know for a fact, it just feels a little egotistical to say, but I know for a fact that King County Elections is one of the leading election offices in the country.
In the country.
And that's because we have spent a great deal of time and energy and effort to make sure that we've got a system that's really accessible for our voters, but that's also transparent for our voters. This is a system where you can go on our website and you can watch us live in action. You can watch us processing ballots. Our election headquarters is open to the public. We've got a fifth of a mile.
Is that common with electoral offices?
We were leading in that.
Okay.
There are more and more jurisdictions that you see, more election offices in this country that have since added web cameras like this to be able to watch live stream as elections administrators do their work. But I think we were the first, if not one of the very first, doing that.
All right.
We have a plexiglass loop literally around our ballot processing area at our King County Elections headquarters, where you can come in and you can watch ballots being processed. We want to be able to show and to prove to our voters, we know how important it is for you to buy into a system. You oftentimes have to get eyes on it. You've got to be able to see it. You've got to validate it for yourself. We respect and understand that. So we want to make sure there's a lot of opportunities for voters to get eyes on the operations. If that's videos on our website, if that's you coming in person to tour the facility, you can do a self-guided, or we love giving tours. Or you can watch us again in action on our website as we live stream us processing ballots. But we are leading in the country in accessible, transparent, and accurate and secure elections. And I think what's also really, really important for voters to know is that they can track their ballot, and they can go on and do ballot alerts as well to make sure that they know exactly where their ballot is in the process. We absolutely meet with election folks from across the country. We are all very actively engaged with election administrators across this country to learn best practices that are working really well across the country.
Across the country, is this a non-partisan, I don't know, our offices, electoral offices, nonpartisan, or across the country, does that differ? Where some may be Republican, some may be Democrat, or whatever the case is.
It's different even across Washington state and across the country, where you will see a lot of folks that run the election offices are elected by party. Okay. They are, but not here in King County. When voters voted in 2009 to make the director of elections an elected position and to make it a nonpartisan position as well. But absolutely, we're learning best practices from folks. And we've got folks coming in from all over the world to watch our operations. They want to see how we're doing it. We were the largest vote by mail jurisdiction in this country for well over a decade. But we have other states that have followed suit, right? You saw California now is vote by mail, Colorado, Utah, Alaska, Hawaii. You see more and more jurisdictions going to vote by mail. And that's because voters are mandating it. When we moved to vote by mail, in 2009, 86% of our voters had already registered as permanent absentee voters, meaning they wanted to receive their ballot by mail. I think what causes a lot of confusion in this country is that we do run elections incredibly different from state to state. But it also says that we're allowed to, right? It also is purposeful that we get to, as a state, determine essentially the manner, the when, and the how, and where we're running our elections. And why did those other states go to vote by mail? Not just for the convenience of voters, but because they saw the highest voter turnout. Colorado, Washington, and Oregon, some of the leaders in vote by mail, have consistently had the highest voter turnout, not fraud, the highest voter turnout in the entire country for decades. So of course you'd have other jurisdictions that would want to follow suit. We've proven that it's secure, we've proven that it's accurate, and that when you bring it to the voters, they will show up. Again, 90% turnout in a presidential election, that's some of the highest you're going to ever see in this, that you've seen to date in this country. Now, I don't hope ever, because I might be naive, but my goal is 100% voter registration rates and 100% turnout. We really want everyone to show up. We really want everyone to have their voices heard.
Well, we're going to talk about access and turnout, but I'm going to probably let go of this fraud thing now. But with mail-in, you eliminate some of the things that we've heard about, like lines where people have to wait, and then things come up like, well, you can't bring them water, or that kind of, I'm calling it nonsense.
It is nonsense.
That come along with people waiting to cast their ballot. Well, the mail-in process is different than that. That eliminates that stuff. So are there any, before we go to break, popular, unpopular myths about mail-in voting that you want to debunk right now? We've talked about it, and you said how secure they are, but there are a lot of conspiracy theories. Are there any popular ones out there that you want to address right now? And if not, that's okay. But
yeah, I mean, again, I think the one that
you'd hear about them.
I'd hear about them for sure. You know, again, is this sort of like, if your ballot isn't in by a certain time, then we stop counting ballots. Or that if you make a mistake on your ballot, like your signature doesn't match, or maybe you got creative and instead of filling in those ovals, you decided to put a heart around your favorite candidate. You know, we still count all of those ballots.
Okay.
We take the time and the effort to make sure we know the voter took the time and effort to get registered and to get informed about the issues and to vote their ballot. And we spend the time to make sure that their vote is counted.
You're listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. It's me, Tony B. My guest is Julie Wise, Executive Director for King County Elections. We're trying to talk about everything regarding voting that you should know, need to know, maybe you don't know, and now you know. We just spent a lot of time talking about the voting process, what happens with your ballot, the transparency that is associated with the voting process. I just found out that like 90% of y'all voted in 2020. Is that right?
That's right.
90%. And in the primary for this off electoral season, only 35% voted, right?
That's right.
This is data. These are true numbers.
Yes.
This isn't. So we're trying to get you to be more aware and to be more informed, and then to cast your ballot during this, what again is a local election. We've got a mayoral election here in Seattle. We've got city council position 9, city council position 8, city council position 2. We've got the city attorney. We've got King County executive. There are a lot of local elections happening right now. We're going to talk again when we come back from break about your vote and if King County Elections does anything to ensure that if you're a young voter or you're an elderly voter, that you know that you have the right to do this, or is that an outside job? Is that like people's jobs here at Rainier Avenue Radio? We'll find out more when we come back from break right after this.
Rainier Avenue Radio. Rainier Avenue Radio.
So my doctor told me to go online to check my test results, but I didn't know how to do that. Thankfully, I could turn to Link to Care WA for help. With Link to Care WA, I was able to learn how to use online health portals, use telehealth to talk to my doctor virtually, and manage my prescriptions online. I called the hotline and spoke to a real person who taught me the skills I needed. Call Link to Care WA at 866-757-1832 or visit linktocarewa.org.
Tune in to Real Estate and Money every Tuesday afternoon from 2:30 to 3 here on Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Join your hosts Violetta Strash with John L. Scott Kent North and Tina Lombard with Guaranteed Rate Affinity. They'll help you navigate the waters of our volatile real estate market and offer you some guidance on how to make your hard-earned money work to make your dreams come true. Learn about current trends, get tips on financial matters, and have fun, interactive discussions about your home inside and out. That's Real Estate and Money.
Totally bored? Mindlessly scrolling? Put down your phone and pick up a free youth transit pass. Youth 18 and younger ride for free. Go all the places. Do all the things. Escape the scroll at freeyouthtransitpass.com.
Wow, it's Traffic Jam with Kareem.
Thursday at 4 p.m.
Hey, Traffic Jam. Rainier Avenue Radio. Download the app so you don't miss out what's popping, what's cracking, what's shining. It's your boy, Cream the Dream, on another beautiful week on here on Traffic Jam in Seattle. I hope you guys doing what you're supposed to do, being you're supposed to be. I got a good show for y'all. A lot to talk about. You know, Kareem the Dream, keep up with everything.
Get your entertainment news with Kareem on the Traffic Jam, Thursday at 4 p.m.
Are your kids eligible for or enrolled in Apple Health Medicaid insurance? Bring them to a free dental clinic in Skyway this fall. Public Health Seattle and King County is hosting free dental clinics for kids 12 and under at the Skyway Resource Center one Saturday per month. Now until December, visit kingcounty.gov/ABCD for more information. Again, that's kingcounty.gov/ABCD for free dental clinics for kids.
You are listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Don't forget to log on www.rainieravenueradio.world.
Welcome the host, Tony B. This is our Community Election Connection. Starting on September 15th all the way through October 26th, 31 days. Every single day, we're going to be informing you about something, creating awareness about something, talking to candidates, talking to folks from our community who are passionate, who are activists, anyone and anyone, anywhere. You can be part of this, and your questions are what drives this whole thing. Yeah, we've got some things that we're doing. We just had a youth held candidate forum where youth talked to members of the Seattle Public School Board. Candidates from the Seattle Public School Board here yesterday. We'll have a couple more youth-driven discussions about how they feel about the whole electoral process. These will be youth in their own words, saying it however they want to say it, whether we think it's wrong, right, agree or disagree. Your voice can be heard. So as a matter of fact, if you're watching right now and you want to put something in the chat, go ahead and do it, and we'll have that addressed. I mentioned that we were going to talk about access and turnout, and Julie, when we were at break, I said, okay, well, you know, we got something in the chat here, and I think it was about, is it your responsibility? Do you see it as your responsibility to engage, in particular, youth with voting? You know, we know that we have this thing called pre-registration, and you might want to talk about that a little bit as well. Is that something that King County Elections does, should be held responsible for, or is it something that you just feel an electoral office should do, which is reach out to folks? And I'm going to talk to some other folks with disabilities as well, elderly, but we're going to address the question, which is you and those who are in school. How does King County, or does King County Elections work in that capacity?
I absolutely think it's our responsibility to make sure that we're reaching out to all of our communities, and especially when we look again at the data, right, of who's voting and who's not. In our 18 to 24-year-olds, do have some of the lowest voting turnout records, right? And have the aren't showing up as much at the polls. And so we have to figure out why that is. And again, I'm a big believer about meeting the voters where the voters at.
Now, I want you to continue, but we hear that all the time.
Yeah.
But then we also hear about activism on college campuses and youth very engaged in things that they believe are wrong or right, or taking a stand. But then we also hear it's the lowest voter turnout, 18 to 24. Can you make that make sense to me? What's going on there and why that is the case?
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, when you look at something like the presidential election, we had a 90% turnout. You saw very high youth engagement in the 2020 election. 2024 had less turnout in general, but again, you still saw pretty good engagement by that 18 to 24-year-old. And I think that part of that is about is modernizing our election system. When I say meet a voter where they're at, I mean how we engage, or how I engage in middle age is different than how we reach out to an 18-year-old or 24-year-old voter. So part of it is making sure that they get registered, right? Because in vote by mail, what I think is really great about it is you have a very clear reminder or notice that it's election time. Why? Because you've got one in the ballot in the mail to you. And again, if you sign up for ballot alerts, you get a text message that say, hey, you've got a ballot waiting for you, right? And so the first thing is to get them registered. Here in Washington State, we're leading in that charge by getting pre-registration. What's pre-registration? 16 and 17-year-olds are being able to get registered to vote. Why? Because we know that they're going to the Department of Licensing usually in that age time frame, and we missed a lot of those youth voters' opportunity to get them registered. So why not get them registered there? Because then they'll go back to the Department of Licensing for years and years later. So it's a really great opportunity. So, and also we can access, especially League of Women Voters, King County elections, people across the state and the country going into schools and getting those young folks registered to vote. Again, they're there at 16, 17, right? And so that's an opportunity for us. So, and also if they get an enhanced driver's license here in Washington State, you automatically get registered. So I think that's a really important piece, is getting a voter registered early on and kind of creating, if you will, that civic habit to engage in each of those elections. We also do a program at King County Elections that's a national award-winning program, which is our internship, where we actually have high school or college-age students at King County Elections being ambassadors of our office, going back out to their peers, going back into the classrooms and talking about the importance or those myths that we hear about elections. And I think that that's critically important. I believe in a philosophy that you've got that trusted messenger, and no better trusted messenger than someone who is the same age as us, who represents us in a way. And that's what we do at King County Elections with the Voter Education Fund, not only for youth voters, but for voters that are currently incarcerated, for voters with a disability, for voters that speak a different language than English. We're making sure that we are putting money into community-based organizations that are respected in the communities, that know how best to engage those respective communities, encouraging them to get registered, to vote, to run for office, to be civically engaged. And I think that's incredibly important. And it's a program that I'm really proud of. It's the first thing I did when I got elected almost a decade ago. And it's something that we still do to this day. And that's putting $1 million back into our community-based organizations to go out and do nonpartisan work, meaning they're not there to tell you who to vote for. They just want to help encourage you to get registered and to make your voice heard.
You're listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. It's me, Tony B. We are talking King County elections. Everything about King County elections. We talked about fraud a little bit earlier. If you missed that, go back and watch it. Now we're talking about access and turnout. I asked specifically about youth and what you're doing to engage, and if that is a responsibility that you have. But there are a lot of different community members who would have barriers or challenges to this voting process. Not that they're not trying to put barriers, challenges in front of us anyway, but there are some folks who just, due to what it is, are going to have challenges. So if you are unsheltered, if you're experiencing homelessness, you did talk about the fact that English may not be your first language. English may not even be your language, but you're still living here. What do you do to, and you help me if I'm saying this wrong, encourage,
yes,
access, create awareness of and people with disabilities as well, to make this process something that they say, hey, I'm supposed to be part of this. This is my right. This is my opportunity to amplify my voice. What do you do with those particular homelessness, unsheltered folks, people with disabilities, people who maybe English isn't their first language, people English isn't their language at all?
I think it's a sort of multi-tier, right? Is I think one thing we have to do is government loves sort of creating hoops and making it overly complicated just to be able to figure out the system, to be able to then participate in the system, right? We do that really well. So we, of course, try to work really hard about simple education, about how to get registered and how to vote. Again, we do a voter education fund where we're working with folks like Real Change that's helping our currently unhoused community. There's that part, that voter education piece, right? But there's also sort of this legislative component, which is advocating for our system to change, to make it easier, right? So things like going to Olympia and advocating that folks can an alternative way to verify than just their signature. Who does that really help?
Now, see, I'm hearing you say make it easier, and that seems like that's what we want. But we also have voices out there who are saying we need to make it more difficult for folks to vote. Anyway, that does exist.
Yes. Yes.
It exists.
Yes, I agree. I agree with you. I'm shaking my head. It shouldn't. It's strategically, politically, right?
But as a nonpartisan,
right.
But you're saying we want to make it easier.
That's right. That's right.
For folks to vote.
Again, we've proven over the last 25 years here, specifically in King County, you can have both. It can be easier and just as secure, if not more secure. There is no reason why in this country, if you want your ballot at home, or you want to go to a vote center, or you want to use a drop box, or you want to use the post office, you shouldn't be able to have that fundamental right. That is easy to do. And we see states with the largest population like California doing it and doing it really, really well. So I think it's strategically political, right? We don't want certain people to show up to the polls is what that really says to me, because it is possible. And well,
if you can win by getting the most votes, but if you suppress votes, then also that's the same as getting the most votes. You stop other people from being involved in voting process by preventing them from voting. If you can't get the most votes,
strategically political. Yes, and we should not politicize elections. It's our right to be able to have access to our own ballot. And we should be able to have some norms across this country. We should be able to have an updated federal act that ensures that every single voter should be able to have a drop box. I mean, it's like the business we saw in Texas. You can only have one drop box per county. So you create these lines. What happens when you create lines? People are not going to be able to stand in line for 12 hours. They're not going to be able to sit in their car for 12 hours. They've got jobs, they've got children, they've got lives. It doesn't have to be that complicated. And again, we're proving that. And there isn't fraud. There isn't this widespread fraud in vote by mail. In fact, I'd argue that what we see out of the data is that we've got less fraud in states that are doing vote by mail, because you've got states that are really working hard to make sure that we've got a secure, shored up election system. And so, yeah, we can make it easier. We need to reach out to voters, though. We need to be really cognizant of that. What works for certain communities isn't going to work for other communities. One of the stories that I love to share is that with the Voter Education Fund, we encourage these community-based organizations to get creative about how to get their respective communities, right, engaged. And we awarded 1 year Washington Bus, right, is known for advocating for youth and getting youth engaged in voting.
So if you paid attention yesterday, Washington Bus was part of the team that put together the Seattle Public Schools public candidate form. Oh, there we go. Right there. Those are the candidates, but that was Washington Bus contributed to that. Anyway.
Yes.
I'm just saying,
yes.
What we're trying to do is get in touch with everybody.
Yes.
Find out how we can get people more access to more information, but you were saying.
Yeah. So organizations like Washington Bus are doing cool stuff. And their proposal for how they could reach out and engage youth was that youth would sign a postcard, a commitment to themselves that they would show up in the next election and that they would sign it. And then Washington Bus would mail out those postcards during the election time. A reminder to you, you made a promise to yourself that you were going to show up in this election and have your voice heard. I was like, what? I'm over here thinking Instagram, Facebook, something, electronic, something for youth. But that was the way which they knew is that a lot of younger folks don't get mail. And so that would be really inspiring to them is that they made a commitment to themselves. So it's things like that we're trying to do to really be intentional about this work and to really think outside of the box, to really tell people, put our hands out and say, hey, we're trying to get these hoops and these barriers out of the way. And so that they can have a direct handout from folks of like, we want to hear your voice.
We're talking about access and turnout and making sure that everyone has an opportunity to be involved in this process. One of the things that has, in a lot of instances, made life easier for us is technology.
Yes.
The technology. How is technology used now to make this process more efficient? You talked about every vote, every signature being checked by you. Is technology used, and how is technology being used in order to make this process more fair, more efficient, and again, prevent, what we'll call human error?
Right. I feel like I sound slightly like a broken record, but big fan of our ballot alerts. And I'll tell you why. Also broken record. I love data. Data is showing us that voters, and we've got about 150,000 voters in King County that is signed up to use ballot alerts. Again, that's when you get a text or an email, your choice, of a reminder that your ballot's in the mail on the way to you. That's also a security component, right? You know to be looking out in your mailbox that you should have your ballot in that mail. It's also security when you mail or put your ballot back in that ballot box, right? And you get a text message that says, King County Elections has it and we're processing. That's a security component, right? But that's also a cool way of using technology to ensure that it's secure, that you might get an email and you'd say, oh, I haven't returned my ballot, right? That'd be a clue to contact King County Elections, who returned a ballot for you, right? So there's a security component to it, but there's also an engagement component to it that's critically important, is that we are seeing drastically higher numbers of folks that are signed up to get ballot alerts that are turning out. So for example, in the primary election, we saw 35% turnout. We had nearly 50% with the voters that signed up for ballot alerts turning out. If you've got a signature issue, those folks are curing their signature at a higher rate. So it's a really cool way of using technology, a way of proving security, and also a way to increase engagement and turnout.
So I'm going to mention something here, and then I want you to ask the question. And maybe I remember years ago, this phrase, I think it was Bull Connor or something like that, that said, it's not who votes that counts, it's who counts the votes. And that stayed with me, and I'm assuming that King County Elections is in place to count votes. That's what you do. You count votes.
That's our business.
So in that process, there may be things people do that make their vote not countable, ineligible. What are some of the common mistakes that people make so that we can ensure that it's who votes that counts, not who's counting the votes that is saying, well, this one isn't compliant, this one isn't right, this one we're taking these up.
Right. So one that really saddens me is voters that return their ballot too late. And so we can't by law count a ballot that's been returned with a postmark of election after election day, right? So what we will see happen is some voters putting their ballot into one of these blue United States postal bins or into their mailbox the day of election day or the day before election day. And it doesn't get to the post office in time to get that all important election day postmark or before. And those ballots cannot legally be counted in Washington state. And sadly, we see thousands of ballots that can't be counted, thousands of votes each election that can't be counted simply because they're returned too late. So that one pains me because the person took the time to get registered, to get familiar with the issues, return their ballot, and then they missed the deadline, right? So I think that what's really important for folks to know is that if you're going to use the United States Postal Service, the United States Postal Service is recommending that you have your ballot within the hands of the post office, so one of those blue bins, or going to a post office itself or to your mailbox a week before election day, right? So that'd be like October 28th, because this November 4th is election day. And so I think that that's really important. Or again, those drop boxes. We've got almost 90 across King County, and there are hundreds across Washington state. Also, I think kind of a fun fact is if you lived in a different county, we'll make sure to get it to the other county. So if you're up here in Pierce County because you work up here, no worries, we'll get it sent off to Pierce County. But I think it's really important for folks to know that we can't count ballots that are returned too late.
Okay, let's drill down on that. When is too late? When is it too late? I mean, if you're gonna push it all the way to the edge, you know, to make sure to
keep it exciting. I don't know.
When is too late? When will your vote not count because you missed the deadline?
Right. So again, if you're returning this year, 2025.
So
our November election is November 4th. So if you're going to use a drop box, you need to have it in before 8 p.m. on November 4th. And I mean before 8 p.m. And keep in mind, there's going to be lines. If you are in line at a vote center, which we haven't talked about, but we do have vote centers here in King County because we, again, want to meet the voters where they're at. If you want to come in person, we have those across the region as well. But 8 p.m. is the deadline.
What's a vote center, just so that people know what you're talking
Yes, a vote center is where you can come in person to get registered, to get your voter's pamphlet, to vote, get your ballot, and return it right then and there. And we've got them located all the way from Kenmore to Kent. You can go to King County Elections website to check out all of the locations across the county. But again, 8 p.m. on election night's the deadline for those big drop boxes.
Somebody will be at the drop box.
That's correct.
And at 7:59 and 59 seconds, they're going to get ready to go. We cannot have you put your ballot in this drop box. Is that what happened? Because there's already
exactly right.
a bunch of them in there that have to be taken to King County elections.
Yes.
So someone is going to go, nope.
Yes, we're going to do the countdown. We all have our clocks and we'll do the countdown. And at 8 p.m., those boxes will be closed. Now, again, if you're in line as a car or a pedestrian at the drop box, it's going to be counted. But I went, wait, you know, what if something happens? What if you run into traffic or a car accident or can't find parking, right? So that's really the deadline. But again, if you're going to use the United States Postal Service, the post office is recommending that you have your ballot in the mail, in the postal system, a week before election day. So that'd be
before
October 28th.
October 28th. If you're mailing your ballot in through the United States Postal Service, don't put it in there on November 3rd.
Don't put it in there on November 3rd. No. If you need to use the post office on November 3rd, you're going to walk into the actual post office and you're going to ask that clerk to make sure that they actually stamp it with a postmark of November 3rd so that it can be counted.
All right. Wow. Again, you're listening to Street Beat. It's me, Tony B. This is part of our Community Election Connection, 31 days, starting on the 15th of September through October 26th, where every single day We are informing you. We are awareing you. We are providing you with information. We're trying to get you to vote. We're trying to get you information so that you can be an informed voter. Again, this is not a presidential election. It's not even a midterm election, but there are some key offices that folks are running for that are local, that impact the future of our city. And so this is how we get down. My guest again is Julie Wise from King County Elections, and we've kind of went over a lot of stuff. What is one thing that, Julie, that you want to leave our voters with about the process, about King County elections, about turning in your vote? If you had to say one thing right now and share that with our audience, and I know it's difficult to summarize everything that we've talked about, but just something that you want to make sure, if we haven't talked about it, but you want to reiterate it, about this process of voting.
You know, on November 4th general election, where there's going to be over 300 offices determined, 17 ballot measures voted on, from a state issue to a county-wide issue, issues here in Seattle and across the region, this is your opportunity to do it. We're estimating only 50% of voters will turn out and have their voices heard in this election. Don't let someone else make a decision for you. Pave your future. By paving your future is by electing your officials today. So ballots are going to come out starting October 15th. If you don't have yours in hand by October 20th, give us a call at King County Elections. That's 206-296-VOTE. Or you can head to our website at kingcounty.gov/elections and make sure that you get your ballot to you. If you're a preparer like myself, you can already head on there online right now and make sure that you're registered at your current address, sign up for ballot alerts, and watch out for that ballot. It's going to be there between October 15th and October 20th. And again, Election Day is November 4th. Don't be late. Make sure to have your voice heard in this important local election for 2025.
So you know how we're getting down, what we're doing here with Community Election Connection. We are one resource, but finally, where can people go who say, I don't know where to go to, so I can get right about this? If they're looking for more information, get direct help with voting, with registration or election questions.
We are answering the phones. We love to hear from our voters. We love to talk through the process and, if going to a vote center is easiest for you, if receiving your ballot by mail. There's a lot of options and opportunities for our voters. So we always encourage them to give us a call. It's a real human being who will answer the phone Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 4:30. And that's again at 206-296-VOTE. Or you can head to our website, which is kingcounty.gov/elections. Or you can always shoot us an email at elections@kingcounty.gov. And of course, you can find us at KC Elections on Facebook and Instagram. We've got some fun posts there as well. And we always highly encourage the very legal selfie, the voting selfie. Okay. You Dropbox, encourage/shame your friends into voting as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, all right. So again, this is our Community Election Connection, powered by the Urban League of Metropolitan Seattle, and then also sponsored by the Community Police Commission, which is sponsoring our series of shows on police accountability. So this is what we've got going on coming up, and more is going to be added, but these are some dates that you can count on. 14th of October, we'll be hosting the City Council 8 position debate. All right, that's Rachel Savage and Alexis Mercedes Rink. That's the 14th. We'll be hosting that right here at Columbia City Theater. You can come down, have your voice heard, or you can just watch, and we'll be streaming that as well. October 16th, this event is called Don't Boo, Vote. Now, it's supposed to be a theme on Halloween. Don't boo, vote. It's also something President Obama said years ago, but don't boo, vote. So it's like this Halloween thing. When you come down that day, you'll find information on candidates, information that we've talked about today. You can register to vote that day. We'll be here from 4 to 7. You can come in, you can ask questions. Again, what we were talking about before. Don't boo, vote. All right, that's on the 16th. Then on the 21st, of October, from 5 to 6, we'll be holding the King County Executive Debate. Both candidates here for that. That's from 5 to 6. Then from 6 to 8, we're going to do our town hall meeting on police accountability, where we'll have a number of different folks. And again, this is sponsored by the Community Police Commission. We're inviting everyone to come down. This is where you can come down and you can say, this is how I feel about what's taking place. This is how I feel about chronic nuisance laws that were initially started, and I'm not going to get on a soapbox about this, supposedly to prevent late night activity at nightclubs. That has changed into now where they're also able to find you guilty, essentially, of being a chronic nuisance in your own home for a lot of different reasons. Maybe you had a rodent problem. Chronic nuisance, and the fine for this is $35,700, $750 a day until it gets resolved. There's a lot of issues out there that you really need to know about, that ultimately at the end of the day, your city council makes laws like every couple of weeks. All right. So you need to find out what this information is. Again, on the 21st of October, we'll have our 5 to 6 King County Executive. You can come down, you can ask questions, and then from 6 to 8, Police Commission, Community Police Commission will be here, and we'll talk about police accountability. We'll hear from some other folks and what their thoughts are. Of course, on the 4th, we will be holding an election results final, and you guys come up with those pretty fast. But you say most of those votes are already turned in beforehand. It's not the day of, and then you can start to find out what that particular trend is. I did kind of give you final words, Julie, but again, I'm just going to give you one more opportunity if there's one thing that you'd like to say before we go.
Just vote. Vote in every single election. Engage in the election process. If that's running for office, if that's encouraging other folks to register to vote, you matter. You're important, and we want to make sure that your voice is heard. And again, reach out to King County Elections. We're here for you. If you have any questions or concerns, want to learn more about the process, we're happy to engage in a conversation. Just reach out to us.
All right.
Happy voting.
All right. And then check us out tomorrow. We'll be broadcasting the Nathan Hale versus Franklin football game, Metro League football, Friday night under the lights, except it's Thursday this time. So check that out. Michael Lloyd on your play-by-play, and one of the 50 greatest Seahawks of all time, Edwin Bailey, doing the color commentary. You know what we do. We are your community radio station. That's it. That's all the time that I have. That's going to do it for the kid. It's me, Tony B, saying, remember, whether you believe you can or whether you believe you can't, you're probably right. I'm out. Peace.